Hey there, I'm Rachel Ehring, and you're listening to the Top Music Piano Podcast. Get inspired as we discuss creative resources, trends in piano pedagogy, ways to grow your income and streamline your studio, and new ways to engage your students each week. If you are a teacher who wants to go beyond the method books to create an innovative studio that fosters lifelong music makers, you've come to the right place. Today on the podcast, Tim Topham returns as host to interview Francesca Christmas about the new Trinity College London exam books that have just been released. Francesca Christmas is Director of Music and Director of Publishing at Trinity College London, overseeing the development of Trinity's International Music Assessment and Publications portfolio. Her doctoral research outputs explore the influences of assessment on music teaching and learning, with a particular focus on the social justice implications of examining in instrumental music education. Francesca has published both book chapters and papers in leading music education journals on the subjects of teacher development, critical pedagogy in music education, and assessment in instrumental teaching. She has worked with many international organizations on the development of teacher education programs. She has worked professionally as both opera singer and as a pop session singer. Here is Tim Topham interviewing Francesca Christmas.
Welcome to the show, Fran. It's great to see you.
Thanks, Tim. It's so good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
And we were just talking before we hit record when I found out that it's 5:15 a.m. for you in London. That is commitment.
This is how passionate I am about our new piano syllabus, Tim. Think of this as the token of how important it is to Trinity. Actually, it's fine because we're an international organisation. I'm often on calls sort of middle of the night or early morning with folk in different parts of the world. So this is completely fine. But I do find that I have gained about an extra third at the bottom of my voice. So I'm going to enjoy being a little huskier at this time of the morning.
It's warming up already. So you're obviously based in London and you work at Trinity College London. Can you tell us what your role entails?
Sure. I'm the Director of Music and the Director of Publishing at Trinity. So my job is to look after all of our music qualifications, music research, music learning products and that we run here. I'm really lucky to work with an academic team who are the guys who are responsible for developing new qualifications, running the existing ones, looking at things like, regulatory work, quality assurance. I'm also really lucky to work with the TCL Press team, who are a small but perfectly formed publishing team and are the guys that put out all of the books and publications that we have to support the music syllabus. I work with all of our examiners. We have about 200 or 300 at last count examiners working across different music qualifications. And I also am really fortunate. My particular sort of area of professional interest is around research in music education. So I get to run our research projects and look at the sorts of research, particularly impact research that we do at Trinity. So a bit of a dream job, Tim, even if it does sometimes have a few 5 a.m.s.
Well, that is multifaceted. Are you an instrumentalist or vocalist yourself?
I am. I was a singer at music college, at Trinity College of Music, actually, now Trinity London. Funnily enough, I've ended back up in the Trinity family. So yeah, a singer originally with a double bass as my second option, and a very enthusiastic, if not particularly expert, piano player. I'll put my hands up to that.
Well, I wanted to invite you on the podcast today because one of my UK-based team members, who's also a teacher over there, heard about your new syllabus and was exploring it and thought there'd been some pretty decent improvements there, particularly regarding repertoire choices. And so she's like, Tim, you've got to go and check out these books. And so I was looking back through my emails. I'm like, I'm sure I know someone at Trinity. And then bang, yes, of course, Fran, I know. We've been in touch before. So I said, could you send me the books? And I have to say, yeah, I'm really excited to unpack a few things about these books because I reckon you guys have done a stunning job on this. So before we get down to those specifics, though, can you tell us how the syllabus at Trinity College London works? Because I think, like ABRSM, you change books every couple of years, which is very unlike in Australia, where the AMEB has a syllabus that lasts for 20 years.
Well, that was the case. We did used to, like the ABRSM, like other boards that sort of grew from England. We did used to change our syllabus every few years. Piano, I think, was on a sort of three-year timetable. However, from this year, everything that is out now remains extant. So any syllabus that we have out for teachers to use at the minute remains now. We've removed the shelf life. We've removed the sell-by date on the syllabus. And that includes the repertoire and the specification itself, so the content of the exam and the pieces you can play, but also any of the graded books that are at the moment sort of in life. We're removing all of those end dates. And we wanted to do that because, well, good music doesn't really go out of date. It doesn't go off. It's sort of, if there's good music published, it remains good music, right? And we're aware that, teachers and learners develop particular affinity for pieces. There are pieces they love. There are pieces that teachers want to teach all the time. And why should they not be valid all of a sudden just because of the syllabus end date? So our piano syllabus is the first sort of full iteration of this, in that the 2021 books that came out a couple of years ago, everything in those books, everything in that syllabus remains available for people to play. And the new 2023 books are now just an addition to that offer.
Doesn't that get a little bit confusing when oral tests and technical work and stuff like that changes, if it does change?
It would do, but it doesn't. So technical work, again, any technical pieces that you play for the piano, they will remain valid, and we'll just bring in new. So there are new pieces in the 2023 books which you can choose from. So now the teachers have the choice from 2021 or 2023. The supporting tests, which for Trinity are oral tests, sight reading, musical knowledge, or improvisation, they remain extant anyway. We'll sometimes change some of those tests that our examiners use, but we don't change the requirements for those supporting tests. So they, regardless of any syllabus renewal that there might have been in the past, they remain in place anyhow.
So can you also just give us a quick overview as well of the different types of exams you offer? Obviously, there's video, there's in-person, there's ones with technical work. Do you do sort of repertoire-only exams now as well?
That's right. So we have the face-to-face exams, which are the ones that people know and love and have done for many, many, many years.
I'm not sure love is quite the right word for some reason.
You'd be surprised. We have some folk who are very, very attached to those exams and those structures and work for their pupils. So that's all good. So they haven't changed. We brought in a few years ago the digital grades and diplomas, and they're available from initial grade up to our LTCL diploma level. And the first version, the first pathway that has been out for a couple of years now, you are asked to play your repertoire pieces. So your 3 or 4, depending on your instrument, your 3 or 4 pieces in the exam, and then the technical works. So depending on the instrument, that might be technical pieces, scales and arpeggios, orchestral extracts, brass band extracts, depending on, what instrument you're playing. And that is recorded by the candidate in their home or school, wherever they want to record it and upload it. So it's an asynchronous exam where the examiner will then access that and send the marks through after upload. In June this year, we also brought into digital grades and diplomas an additional pathway, and this is available through 1 to 8, initial to 8. And that is where the candidate can choose to just play, instead of their technical work, an additional piece of repertoire from the syllabus, from the books. So we've called that repertoire only, available just for the last couple of months, but we're already seeing, which is really good to see, there are some high numbers coming through using the repertoire pathway. So the idea is that we're trying to, with our digital grades and diplomas, the aim is to introduce additional features which make those exams as accessible as possible to as many teachers and candidates as we can.
That's great. All right, so let's talk about the latest. Do you call it syllabus or book series? What would you call this collection?
So we call it Piano 2023 because, it does what it says on the tin. And actually it's quite, just for a little bit of exam board sort of nomenclature, the syllabus itself, the specification within the syllabus, so the requirements of the teacher or the candidate, in terms of the exam construct, doesn't change. That remains the same. And it's what are effectively exam items, the pieces of repertoire we're increasing. So we're just calling it Piano 2023 to make it easy for everyone.
Okay. Love the covers, by the way. Very, very cool.
I'm so glad you said that. They're beautiful, aren't they?
They are.
We're so happy with those.
Yeah, they're actually a bit of a work of art. I think they're really stunning. And I know that...
I'm glad.
Because I've been involved in a previous collection for the AMEB, and after all of the other things that you're doing, the cover is almost like, oh, okay, yes. I mean, I didn't have to personally choose the cover, but that was an important thing to do as well. After all the work you've done to put the books together, but it's quite, I put my hand up and say I do judge books like novels and things by their cover. So
the cover.
It's important to me. Anyway, that aside, the most obvious difference with these books is the wide variety of modern music. So was that a conscious decision?
It was the outcome of a conscious decision, yes. So with the 2021 books now remaining valid, so there are 21 pieces in the extended edition for the 2021 books already, and those books cover a beautiful sort of selection of Western classical music, contemporary classical, some other styles and genres in there, but it captures a lot of the sorts of core piano repertoire that a teacher might be exploring with their learner. What we wanted to do, the way that we wanted to conceptualize 2023 was an expansion of that. So more music rather than replacing 2021. So there was a kind of sense check of, well, we don't need to replace this stuff, right? We don't need a different Mozart sonata in there. We already have some really good music in there for people to play. So you do see some additional Western classical sort of core repertoire, if you like, in the 2023 books where we've wanted to expand that to some extent. But actually, the main objective of the 2023 books was not just to increase the styles and genres available, but was to think about the impact of those books and the place they have in a learner's journey. And we know from talking to teachers that sometimes, the piano book that a learner learns from, that is the breadth of music that they will encounter for many years as they're learning. So it's sort of, those books become their core repertoire. And whatever is in that book sort of tells our learners what we as an international example think is important in their music learning. So for us, it was really important that we didn't continue perhaps to ascribe to a sort of particular musical hierarchy, saying that, what we need to do is play the Western classical stuff, and then we can bring some other bits that you might enjoy in around the edges. We're not into that sort of view of piano teaching and learning. We also wanted the books to represent better the sorts of communities of people that we work with. And we have a really diverse global population working with Trinity. And it's really important for us that we recognise that in our books, so that our composers, we have deliberately worked with a number of composers from perhaps the more traditionally underrepresented backgrounds with protected characteristics, with the view that this music and the people that write it or create it or perform it should represent the sort of wider population of candidates that are working with us. And then what comes from that is a much more diverse selection of styles and genres. So what we hope this has done is sort of provide young people with or learners, not always young, often young, with a much broader conceptualization of what music is and what they can play. That we've hopefully introduced them to people who are aspirational for them. We've got I'll be really happy to tell you about some of the composers and arrangers we've worked with, because they're just amazing. And it's, a real pleasure to introduce our learners to those guys. And also, lastly, just practically recognizing that people learn the piano and do their grades for a panoply of different reasons these days. It's not necessarily to get into music college or to go to university or to be a concert pianist. It can be because they love playing the piano. They want to express themselves. They like to sit and work things out. They like to sit and enjoy music that they listen to elsewhere. A lot of people are learning online now. A lot of people are using apps to help them with progress alongside, or even sometimes instead of their teaching. There are so many ways to learn the piano. And we wanted the exams to be as relevant to those guys as they are for people working sort of one-on-one with a teacher in a more traditional sort of setup for piano teaching. So when we sort of pieced all of that together, what that meant was we ended up with a much broader selection of styles and genres within the books. And we thought of them as sort of stylistic pathways. We've mapped those to make sure that they're consistent across all the grades and that we've got the same sort of weighting across the grades for all of them. We were really pleased, really excited to see the outcome of those lists from the specialists we were working with.
Yeah, and I hope you've been getting some good feedback, positive feedback from teachers who are starting to engage with this as well. Do students have to play 4 pieces, one from each era kind of thing in the book, just to simplify?
No, they don't. We do at grade 6 to 8, we do have 2 groups. And the purpose of those is to make sure there's a balance, not in the styles and genres or the sort of, the chronology, if you like, of the pieces they play, just to ensure they're playing something that's sort of technically demanding as well as something that's perhaps more lyrical or expressive. So grade 6 to 8, they're, 2 aspects of performance that we'd expect to see. But below that, we don't dictate what they play. It could be as simple as, if we were to dictate what a student would play, that could be a barrier for many, many young people learning. If you have a real love of a particular style or particular feel of the music you want to play, then actually all of those pieces they're designed to a set of parameters which make them relevant for the grade. We're not sure that it's our job to dictate what that young person engages with for their exam. Teachers may choose to do that because they feel that that's important pedagogically. And of course, we can support that. But I don't believe that it's our job to dictate that. We just want to be able to assess the ability of the student at that point in time they come into their exam.
So it's conceivable a student could play, if there were 3, we'll say there were 5 pop songs in grade 1, they could play 3 of those for their exam without playing a Bach, a Baroque piece, for example. Yeah,
they could do. One of the principles we had sort of sitting underneath including the pop songs was that those arrangements should be sort of obviously pianistically beautiful, that it's not just a case of, sticking a famous pop song in there and, them sort of just working through a head and a bunch of, comping some chords underneath. We sort of thought about it as pop to classical almost, that we were taking a song that they might know, really enjoy, but still requiring the same level of technique and standard from them. But from an assessment point of view, if they did play 3 pop songs, we would still be looking for the same sorts of technique, the same sorts of musicianship, the same aspects of communication interpretation as we would of a Baroque era piece.
Got it, yeah. And I do want to talk about the arrangements. The pop arrangements they're very pianistic, as you say. It's not a sort of rush job, we better get a pop song in here. A simple example would be, unexpectedly, as I was playing, I can't remember which one it was, the melody moved to the left hand and the chords are in the right hand, and things like that, which was just unexpected. But again, it allows students to develop these pianistic skills that we want them to have, balance between the hands and things, within the context of a pop song that they might like. I have to say, I was just blown away. Just looking through grade 1, you've got, I heard it through the grapevine, My Heart Will Go On from the Titanic, 9 Million Bicycles, so Katie Malua, Titanium Sia, this is a Billie Holiday song, and there's Guantanamera. I was like, this is so cool. I just kept turning a page and going, oh my goodness, I would love to have learned this song. And as I say, they are really fun to play. And then I was looking at the initial book, and if you turn to the first book, or grade 1, 2, preliminary 1, 2 in most exam boards, you'll hit Bach or a son of Bach very early on, probably the first 3 pieces. And I did not see Bach for the first 3 pieces. In fact, in grade 1, they were all unknown composers to me, which goes to what you were saying about this being an addition almost to the 2021, where you probably did have some Bach. You've got Nickelman, Gammarini, Van Hal, and Goodrich, none of whom I'd ever played or heard of. And they're all from that era. I thought, wow, this is really impressive. So you must have had a number of people involved in these collections, because I can't imagine one person would be able to have put this together.
Yeah, we did. We had, for each style pathway, we had one expert, if you like, sort of overseeing the pathway, whose job was to sort of pull together the final recommendations, but a huge number of specialists who were researching and recommending pieces. We've got a very large proportion of arranged and newly commissioned pieces in there too. Interestingly, we're running our first podcast series actually at the moment, talking to some of the composers and arrangers. Yeah, it's our first foray into it. And it's great fun because I'm getting this wonderful opportunity to sit and just chew the fat with all of our arrangers and composers that worked on the syllabus. And a lot of them, I mean, some of whom have got, their Emmy-winning, BAFTA-winning, extraordinary outputs, amazing artists. And, in the podcasts, they're telling you, the hardest thing was writing for grade 1. The hardest thing was writing for initial, because you've got these gorgeous pieces of music and you've got to find a way to, maintain the harmony, but thin it out enough, and to, maintain the feel, but find a way for a beginner to, to comfortably have it under their hands. And chatting to our team at Trinity, they said, those earlier grades, they took the longest time. They may only be 16 bars long, but they take so much time. It was quite challenging to bring in those pieces at the lower grades. But as you say, we've got, Bach. There's a lot of Bach that people can access if they want to. That we haven't sort of usurped Bach and his place in the syllabus, but we asked our specialists working on those sort of Baroque classical pathways for us to feature some of the female composers that aren't often found, some of the composers from Black composers, Asian composers who were there, who have these gorgeous pieces. The Goodrich piece in grade 1 is glorious, and we've already had. We're running a competition at the moment where teachers and learners can send in recordings of people playing the 2023 pieces. And we've had so many versions of the Goodrich piece because it's so beautiful. It's instantly captivating. And that wouldn't, she wouldn't perhaps be featured in very many graded syllabuses perhaps before now. So it's our sort of, coming back to that idea of wanting to feature different composers that perhaps have outputs that are as important as anybody else's, but don't often get syllabus space. We wanted to make room for them in these books.
Yeah, I work with a lot of people in America and was over there last year at a conference, and there is a huge push for underrepresented and minority composers to have their light of day, which is just and female composers, and the music that's coming out, it's so sad that this hasn't been done before when all this great music is out there. So kudos to you for doing that. And I know all the exam boards are certainly moving in that direction now, which I think is fabulous.
Yeah, I think it's really important work, because if you do have the responsibility of an exam board of working with, we work with hundreds of thousands of music learners every year. And if we put something out that says, actually, the only important stuff is the guys who are writing in the 1800s, those, the European white guys, then that enculturates a whole generation of musicians into the same belief set. And we want to do what we can to disrupt that, which is proving to be disruptive. And we have had, whereas the majority of the feedback has been incredibly positive, and we have already had lots of discussions about these principles behind the syllabus. There are some teachers and educators who find it really challenging, because for those guys, there hasn't been a place for new writers and new composers in a piano syllabus, and this perhaps disrupts some of the principles that people might hold about what they think young people should be learning. So good disruption, but and positive, but certainly a talking point at the moment.
Yeah, and pushing teachers out of comfort zones too. I think it's very easy, and I've previously fallen in this trap as well. When you're working on your own day to day with students, it's very easy to have your favourite pieces and stick to them and know how to teach them inside out, be able to pick every fault that a student's going to make before they make it. So I think it's wonderful to give teachers a little nudge to go, hey, why don't we shake things up a bit? Why don't you try this? Because the more teachers try new things, the more they're going to grow. They're going to be refreshed. Their students are going to be refreshed. Their studio will be a fresher place as well. So, yeah, kudos for that. What about, is there anything else in the syllabus that you'd like to mention that has been a bit of a change or something different?
Well, I think the main changes are obviously the fact that we're not, so teachers who find the pieces they love in the 2023 books, now these won't go out of date. They will continue to be valid, forevermore. and we'll bring out more music as we go through time. So that's really the biggest change for us, the fact that now, because of the sort of cumulative nature of it, we now have 42 published pieces available at each grade for piano within between the two books. One change we made as a result of sort of feedback from customers was that the 2021 books came in two editions. There was a standard edition with 12 pieces in it, and then an extended edition, which had, in addition, a kind of digital ebook of further pieces to bring it up to 21. This year, we got lots of feedback that this is great, but we'd love it all in print. We'd like it all to be able to sit on the piano, please. So this year we have the standard edition of 12 pieces, and then the extended edition, which brings 21 all in print this time rather than just an ebook. We've also got all of our printed books as a digital ebook on our e-store, so you can get the full publication digitally if that suits you better. Slightly different price points that will suit some of our teachers and learners better, we think. And we've also got around, I think, 200 of the pieces from across the 2021 and 2023 books available as singles, so just digital downloads, because we wanted to recognise that the sheet music. So because we recognise that you might love two pieces in 21 and two pieces in 23, and you might not want to have to buy two publications. So, and we'll continue making more of those available as singles. Wherever we can, where licensing doesn't restrict us, we'll have those as downloads. So we hope that's a more flexible way for people to buy their repertoire. You talked about the cover, and we spent a lot of time getting the cover right, because they're premium products, right? They're expensive. They need to last. They need to be, we want people to be able to access the music in it for many years. So the book needs to last. It needs to be a book that will be 10, 20 years on a piano, rather than something that's only used for a couple of years. But we know that that in itself can be a barrier to taking an exam, the costs of buying the resources around it. So we hope that the ebook store makes that more accessible to more people.
And we should say too that the pages, like the quality of the print books they are great. They're the kind of things you want to have on a shelf. And the pages sit flat. They're also slightly yellow, which I love. They're not bright white. Just simple things like that, I think, that have made all the difference. I wasn't aware of being able to do single sheet downloads. That's a game changer, I think, for teachers when they're working with students and parents are on a budget and things like that. That's a real bonus. The other thing I did notice was QR codes in them. So you've got, are all the pieces recorded or just some of them?
No, we've got recordings of all of them. We were really fortunate. We worked with some amazing pianists on the recordings. I mean, just the recordings themselves are just worth downloading and having on in the car. They're beautiful. And we worked with, where we could, we worked with the composer if it was a commission piece. So the person that wrote it also played it. So we've captured the composer's version of their pieces. We worked with some wonderful jazz pianists, classical pianists, or pianists from all sorts of parts of the industry. And it's a quick download. Now we've got our own download system set up so that it's very easy and quick to access those pieces when you buy the book.
Yeah, I can't really see teachers needing much more. I mean, you really have offered everything that they need. And so I really encourage teachers to explore this. Are they able to see some of the example pieces on your website without downloading the books? Can they sort of flip through those?
They are.
Yeah.
They are. So there are a couple of ways that you can access that. If they can access the e-store, which I believe the majority of that you can get to that from just about all parts of the world. We have sample pages and sample audio from every book. That won't give you every piece, but it will give you sort of 6 or 7 pieces from the book. So you can get a sense of what grade 2-ness means if you're a teacher who's not perhaps being part of the graded system. And isn't familiar with what's expected at each stage. It gives you a really good sense of that. And the other thing we've created this year, our content team has created the most beautiful interactive sample booklet that's just freely available from the website, and that gives you lots of samples of pieces, audio clips, some of the performance notes. It links to other information about the exam. It's a really nice interactive tool to use. So I would encourage teachers to probably start with a sample booklet if you want to get an idea of some of the music in there. Have a look at the eStore for some of the samples on there. And just, sorry, Tim, I'm plugging a podcast on a podcast. You have to forgive me. But every week we've got, I interview one of our composers or arrangers every week, and they talk about their piece and what they wanted to bring to the candidates and teachers in their piece, how people might approach it. There's some brilliant discussion about sort of their background, their journey to becoming video games composers or opera composers. We've got some great folk on there, like Julian Joseph has. We've just released the Julian Joseph episode, which is gorgeous, hearing about all of his musical influences that he brings to his writing. So that's another really good place to go to find out about the pieces and what they can bring to students.
What's that called?
The Trinity College London Piano Podcast. That's what it says on the tin. I think they're available on Spotify and other podcast platforms at the moment.
Wonderful. All right, I'll make sure I check it out. Well, look, thanks so much, Fran, for coming on the show and explaining exactly what you've created. I think it's a great sort of move towards what the future of exam offerings can look like. So yeah, thank you for putting out some really engaging music. I cannot imagine a child grabbing one of those books, or a teacher for that matter, and going, there's really nothing in this one. Like there's just so much great music in there. So and as I said, I'm particularly impressed by the arrangements of the pop songs. So I'm going to be looking up some of those arrangers as well and making contact, because they are great.
They are brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you like the books and you appreciate what we're trying to do with them going forwards. So thank you ever so much.
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. We'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks, Tim.
I hope you enjoyed this interview between Tim and Francesca. It's inspiring to hear how Trinity College London has included such a wide range of music in their new series. We often think of teaching pop songs as extra or not as important as the standard classical repertoire, but these books are proving that the same concepts and techniques can be taught through a wide variety of musical styles. There's a lot happening right now in the Top Music Pro membership, including the release of the new course Unfazed, teaching neurodivergent students. If you are already a member, be sure to check it out, and if you are not yet a Top Music Pro member, this is the perfect time to join to get access to all of the newest resources. That's the end of the show for this week. I hope you will join me again next week when we are going to start a series of episodes discussing summer camps and various ideas for summer offerings in your piano studio. I'm Rachel Ehring, and you've been listening to the Top Music Piano Podcast. I'll see you back here soon.
How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today.